You're listening to WQEE 99.1 FM, The Key in Noonan, Georgia, home of Braves Country with Mac McGee and the Armchair Quarterbacks, weekdays, 3 p.m. Eastern to 5 p.m. Eastern, right here on The Key and YouTube.com at Braves Country.
Tom has been a teacher for over 40 years. One day, I think one of the students had asked the question and he didn't remember the answer. And I also noticed that he was letting his class out earlier than they were supposed to let out. I was really starting to worry.
Levi and I talked about how it would change our lives, but he was there beside me.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. Visit alz.org/ourstories to learn more. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Hey folks, this is Mark White with The Mark White Show, and you can tune into The Mark White Show every Saturday from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. right here on Rock 99 WQEE The Key, the home of Southern sports and talk.
Are you looking for a reliable dental practice that not only cares about your teeth, but is friendly to work with? How about one that offers great deals and new patient promotions? Well, your search is over. Most Valuable Smiles in downtown Eatonton, Georgia is committed to giving you the biggest and brightest smile. Right now, get a $99 new patient special, including x-rays and exam. Maybe you're looking for veneers. Most Valuable Smiles veneer special includes one free veneer with every 5 purchased. Or get that bright white smile you've always wanted by taking advantage of an exclusive $100 off Zoom whitening treatment when you book today. And don't forget that 2022 is almost over. That means most insurance policies will reset by the new year, and to avoid losing that extra money, you need to use it or lose it. Book an appointment today with Most Valuable Smiles in downtown Eatonton to lock in these exclusive deals. Call 706-623-0318 or visit mostvaluablesmiles.com.
Enjoy sun-drenched days, epic stays, and plenty of room to roam in Greater Fort Lauderdale. Our hotels, attractions, and restaurants have taken the Visit Lauderdale's Safe and Clean pledge so you can relax and explore with confidence. When you're ready for that well-deserved staycation, our 23 miles of golden beaches await. Find wide-open spaces to hike, bike, kayak, and paddleboard. Visit your favorite attractions, then dine out in style in dining rooms or al fresco on waterfront patios. Learn more at sunny.org.
It all starts with just one thing. When recycling, rinse out jars and cans, and avoid recycling wax paper or paper soiled with food. This will reduce recycling contamination. Find tips and more at onethingus.com. What's your one thing?
Hey sports fans, The Key has a brand new show. Braves Country is coming your way weekdays 3 p.m. Eastern to 5 p.m. Eastern. Drive time on WQEE. Braves Country is a Southern sports talk show with Mac McGee and the Armchair Quarterbacks. We'll be talking the Atlanta Braves and Major League Baseball, along with everything important to sports fans in Braves Country. The SEC, ACC, Big Ten, and the National Football League, and the big sports news of the day. That's Braves Country with Mac McGee and the Armchair Quarterbacks. Weekdays, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. right here on WQEE The Key, 99.1 FM, and simulcasting on youtube.com/at Braves Country.
At Shell, we know from the time you get up to the time you wrap up,
good night,
there's a lot of meetups, eat-ups, and hurry-ups. So come to Shell and get 3 things done at once. Fill up with Shell V-Power Nitro Plus to help keep your engine running like new. Save up with the Fuel Rewards program and never pay full price for gas again. And snack up with in-store rewards to save even more at the pump. Make the most of the stop you need to make with Shell and engines that continuously use Shell V-Power Nitro Plus premium gasoline. See full terms and conditions at fuelrewards.com.
That's the sound of NyQuil Severe hard at work. NyQuil Severe is the best sleep with a cold medicine. No tossing and turning, just rest and recovery. So you're ready to take on tomorrow. For powerful relief of your worst cold and flu symptoms, try NyQuil Severe. The nighttime sniffling, sneezing, coughing, aching, stuffy head, best sleep with a cold medicine. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Hey Braves fans, thank you for listening to Braves Country Baseball. Hi, I'm Mac McGee, and we are here to bring you play-by-play, pitch-by-pitch of your Atlanta Braves, and bringing you spring training and 2 to 3 games a week all season long. Please like and subscribe today. Braves Country Baseball.
Winter is the perfect time to start planning for your healthy, pest-free spring lawn with True Green, America's #1 lawn care company. True Green's science-based approach and local expertise will help give your lawn the year-round care it needs to be thick and weed-free. Go to truegreen.com. Just call 866-946-5956 or go to truegreen.com today and get a lawn to be proud of.
Hey, sports fans, it's Rod Peterson here, host of The Rod Peterson Show, inviting you to join us daily for 2 hours of Atlanta's funnest sports talk right here on WQEE. I say fun because it is. You've never heard a show like it because we make the listeners a part of the show every day between noon and 2 p.m. Eastern. You'll hear plenty of the best sports talk, including the latest on the Falcons, the Braves, and more. And who knows, you might even hear you. That's the Rod Peterson Show, daily at noon, right here on WQEE 99.1 FM.
We live in a world now that welcomes and nurtures the screwball in all of us. Hey, it's a new decade, people. Time to get a little nutty. Treat yourself to Screwball Peanut Butter Whiskey, a smooth flavor that combines two of America's favorites, peanut butter and American whiskey. So no more social awkwardness. Time to embrace who you truly are. Get out there and make friends. And be sure it starts with Screwball Peanut Butter Whiskey. It's available nearly everywhere. Learn more at screwballwhiskey.com. Infinium Spirits. Please enjoy responsibly.
Hey, sports fans, the Key has a brand new show. Braves Country is coming your way weekdays 3 p.m. Eastern to 5 p.m. Eastern. Drive time on WQEE. Braves Country is a Southern sports talk show with Mac McGee and the Armchair Quarterbacks. We'll be talking the Atlanta Braves and Major League Baseball, along with everything important to sports fans in Braves Country. The SEC, ACC, Big Ten, and the National Football League. And the big sports news of the day. That's Braves Country with Mac McGee and the Armchair Quarterbacks. Weekdays, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. right here on WQEE, The Key, 99.1 FM. And simulcasting on youtube.com/@Braves Country.
It's the best in sports and entertainment, and get locked in and locked down with Rhino Radio Penitentiary, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. with your host, me, Ryan O'Neill, each and every morning, right here with the best in sports and entertainment, all the way from professional sports to college sports to River Dragons hockey and everything in between, including some of the very best local and national guests. It's the Rhino Radio Penitentiary, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. Monday through Fridays, right here on 99.1 FM WQEE.
You're listening to WQEE 99.1 FM, The Key in Noonan, Georgia.
Armchair. You're listening to the Armchair Quarterback Sports Radio, #1 sports station.
Good afternoon, and this is your Armchair Quarterbacks Sports Flash. Pretty light slate in the NBA tonight. The Boston Celtics are at the Oklahoma City Thunder. Celtics 26-11 on the season. Thunder 15-21. Tips at 8 o'clock Eastern. Boston's a 9-point favorite over under 234. On NBA TV, Wizard and Bucks. Milwaukee, 8-point favorites, 229.5 is the over. And the Kings and Jazz, 9 o'clock Eastern. Utah, 3.5-point favorite at home, over under 242.5. Men's college basketball tonight. The number 8 Tennessee Volunteers are at home against Mississippi State. The Vols, 9.5-point favorite, over under 122.5. Number 3 Kansas is on the road at Texas Tech. Rock Chalk Jayhawk, a 1-point favorite, over under 140.5. Longhorns at home against K-State. Texas, 8.5-point favorite, over under 135. Bama hosts Ole Miss on SEC Network, 9 o'clock Eastern. Bama an 11-point favorite, while number 11 Virginia is at Pittsburgh. Cavaliers, 6-point favorite, over under 127. Also in the SEC, South Carolina's at Vandy at 7 o'clock on SEC Network. And LSU, 8 o'clock Eastern on ESPN. They're 12-1 on the year and travel to the 9-4 Kentucky Wildcats. While in the ACC, Notre Dame's at Boston College at 7 o'clock on ACC Network. And Syracuse is at 2-12 Louisville. Cardinals are a 9-point dog at home. 137.5 is the over. And that's your Armchair Quarterback Sports Flash. Stay tuned for Braves Country right here on WQEE 99.1 FM, The Key in Noonan, Georgia, simulcasting on youtube.com at Braves Country.
Armchair.
There's something kind of about a kid that's never played baseball.
We have been hoodwinked, bamboozled, and flat out deceived.
Why did you get so drunk?
You got drunk. I'm just really exhausted.
What's in that cup?
I'm a Cokes.
Do you have any idea how important this is? We're trying to save the pub call. Really? This is what you're doing? This is what you're doing?
Chief, what do you want to do tonight?
The same thing we do every night. Try to take over the world.
106 miles to Chicago. We got a full tank of gas, half a pack of cigarettes. It's dark, and we're wearing sunglasses. Hit it.
Armchair. YouTube Live.
Radio station. The radio station you can call your own. Do you know what listeners like about our station?
I like everything. It's always on my radio. We never stop the music, except for now, when I talk.
You're listening to Braves Country with Mac McGee and the Armchair Quarterbacks. We're here live weekdays, 3 p.m. Eastern to 5 p.m. Eastern, WQEE 99.1 FM, The Key, and simulcasting on youtube.com/at Braves Country. Your first choice for Southern sports. Good afternoon. I don't know much, but I know one thing. All thoughts and prayers go out to Damar Hamlin and his family, the Buffalo Bills Mafia, and the Bills Mafia family.
Armchair.
Community Access Channel.
He's the armchair quarterback. He's full of beer and he's full of snacks. The all-American man.
Hello, kind of a somber hello today, not my normal intro, because I want to do the correct respect for Damar Hamlin and what him and his family and, of course, his teammates, which become family, are going through at this very moment. He is still in critical condition is the last thing that we have seen, and he remains hospitalized, obviously. And the NFL, in case you missed it, they have made an announcement a couple hours ago. We have it shared on the screen. The Bills-Bengals game will not be resumed this week. The NFL announced there is no decision on potentially returning it at a later date. I seriously doubt that it does get played. And I was saying that last night when I was talking with some friends about it back and forth, and they were talking about the ramifications of it and whatnot. And I watched a show this morning, and I immediately put aside what they were referring to. They were talking about not playing any games this weekend and replaying the game on Monday night, and then pushing back the season 1 week. And basically what you would do, and you could do this, but basically what you would do is you would just eliminate the weekend between the Super Bowl and the conference championship games and just not have the bye week. Well, they're going to avoid that at all costs for a lot of reasons. First of all, it's the logistics of when you get from the conference championship game to the Super Bowl and all the things that they put on. They've tried it a few times, and it really ends up being a very poor product for the Super Bowl itself. And you can't do your normal thing. So I immediately figured that was not going to happen. Now, could they have possibly pushed the season back across the board? I guess they could have, but I think the most logical thing that they're doing is what we're seeing them do. And that is they're going to cancel that game. And putting aside the fact that, we've had several hours to deal with the actual stunning part of poor Damar Hamlin falling to the turf after the hit and his family. And that's obviously the number one of importance. So I don't want to make light of that at all. But outside of that, this is a sports talk show, and people are going to start wondering at some point today, what does it mean for the sports world, the NFL world, as far as everything else goes? If you just look at the logistics of it, because it's still just a game, you just cancel the game. And it might be inconvenient for a lot of different reasons, but you just cancel the game. It's one game, and it's not like if this game had been played on Thursday night, yeah, obviously they could have pushed it to Monday or Tuesday or whatnot, but it's football. It's not baseball. It's not basketball. It's not hockey. You can't just play in a few days and then the next game not be affected. And so logically, if you look at the standings, Buffalo is 12-3. Cincinnati is 11-4. And Kansas City is 13-3. Now, what this would essentially mean is Cincinnati would win the North. Okay. Buffalo's already won the North, and Kansas City has already won the West. What that game really affects is seeding. I don't think it's worth going back out there and reliving the moments that they had for seeding purposes. And so what it will come down to is essentially if Kansas City wins this coming Saturday, Kansas City would have 14 wins and nobody could catch them, right? Buffalo would then play Sunday against New England with heavy hearts, obviously. And you would just say, look, Buffalo, you're going to play in the first round. You're going to host. You're going to be a 2 seed. And I know it's not ideal. I understand that a lot of Buffalo fans, after the dust settles, will be just basically saying that what could have been. But you've got to react to this in a logical aspect. And I really think that's the best way to do it. And then just move on. Worry about the health of Damar Hamlin, obviously. That goes without saying. I'm not making light of any of that. But when you look at from the sports side, the NFL side of it, it's really not worth going back out there and playing that game for seeding purposes. And I get it if you're a Ravens fan, you're a little disappointed because it means you're not going to be able to win the division. If you're a Bills fan, you basically just become a Raiders fan on Saturday because if Kansas City goes to 13-4, Buffalo beats New England on Sunday at 13-3, they would win it by a half game. Cincinnati would be essentially out of the mix. And look, that's just the break. Cincinnati was going to have to get help anyways. So I just think the smartest and most logical way to do this is to just cancel, just come out and say you're canceling the game altogether. Not postpone. I think that's the wrong terminology. Just tell them you're canceling the game. I really thought last night they would just say that the Bills forfeit. Look, I know it was just 7-3 in the first quarter, but they could have just put a fork in it and forfeited it. And none of this would have come to a head, but that's where we're at. They have no plans to replay that game. I don't see why they would. It's not worth it. And you move on. And if you're a fan of a team that's affected, you hate it, but hey, that's sports, and you realize there's bigger things in this world than the seeding of your football team, and you just hope for the best for Hamlin. And that's what we're necessarily focusing on today. We are going to try to talk a little sports to try to change the mood. I know a lot of people probably, if you've had it on any of the national sports networks all day long, that's what you've seen. And it's like any great tragedy in America. We have to try to move on. We don't forget by any stretch of the imagination, but we have to try to move on because that's what Hamlin would want you to do, right? That's what anybody would want you to do. And I think back of a lot of these things. Look, one of the first things that came to my mind, obviously the Ryan Shazier injury for the Steelers. But there was one that hit me hard when I was younger, and I'm going to date myself a little bit, but back in 1989, Chucky Mullins of Ole Miss playing Vanderbilt, he was a linebacker. He was a superior player, probably would have played in the league. You would have to think he was very good. He was paralyzed on the field, and sadly enough, Chucky Mullins only lived about a year and a half. It was about a year and a half later he had some complications, and he passed away. That's always the one that I initially go to. Now, there's another one if you're a little older. I do not remember this because this is just before my time, so to speak. I wasn't old enough to comprehend this, but Darryl Stingley of the New England Patriots was hit by Jack Tatum of the Raiders, and I always heard about it, always read about it, but I do not remember it. Wide receiver was paralyzed, and this was 1978, and that actual play led to a lot of the don't lead with your head, et cetera, rules that have evolved over the years. That was essentially the beginning of it. And then obviously we have evolved as the sport has gone on. And it's a violent game, but I really don't think that hit by Hamlin had anything to do with football being a violent game. It was a freak occurrence. And I'm not saying that it didn't have anything to do with football, but that's not a typical injury that you would see by anybody. It's one of those things that can't be explained. And obviously well above my pay grade, there are doctors out there that wouldn't be able to explain it. But if you didn't see the play, and if you've only reacted off of social media and whatnot, he did not lead with his head, so to speak. It wasn't anything like, it wasn't, because that was the first thing that I was watching the game live, and I saw him fall to the ground just randomly off to the side. I was like, whoa, what was that? And my wife was sitting next to me. She goes, what? I said, look at this. And it was about that time that the broadcasters caught up to it, because they're focusing on the play, and they're saying, hey, there's someone down on the field. But I knew instantly the way that he collapsed, it wasn't normal. And you thought maybe that he gotten his bell rung. You've seen some guys stagger and whatnot, but a lot different look, because he just kind of fell out. A lot of things were going through our mind as far as what could it be. I honestly guessed wrong, and I'm not even going to get into what I thought it could have been, because it's really a moot point at this point. But I wasn't even thinking cardiac arrest. And obviously that's a strange injury, but it's not necessarily because football being a violent game. I mean, in theory, he could have had that reaction in a lot of things in life. It's terrible. It's a terrible circumstance. And I don't know what else to say. Maybe I don't say it eloquently enough, but I was literally shocked, like most people were that were watching it. And then, of course, we sat there for the longest time trying to see what was going on. And at that point, I really didn't care if the game got played. I was more trying to check all the different outlets to see if there was an update on his health. And around 11-ish, 11:30, maybe it was closer to midnight, one of his close friends posted on Twitter that his vital signs had returned somewhat to normal, and he was in critical condition. And that was about the time that I went to bed, but woke up this morning. First thing I did was grab my phone to see, is there any news? What's going on with him? And I'm sure a lot of people had the same reaction. It was just that was a really rough thing to watch, to experience. And some of the comments that you see out there on social media are really irresponsible about what people think led to this. I mean, extremely irresponsible. and I'm not even going to answer those types of comments. I'm not even going to entertain those types of comments because they're extremely irresponsible. And everybody's a medic, everyone's an MD when things like this happen. But the truth of the matter is we don't know. And it's a terrible, terrible thing. We're going to go ahead and go to break. And when we come back, we're going to try to reset. We're going to try to talk a little sports. Really difficult considering the circumstances, but that's what you do. That's what we do in these types of situations. Joey is on the way, and we'll obviously get his reaction as well. But we will be back in a flash here on Braves Country HD, wherever you stream, and Braves Country on 99.1 FM, The Key. In Newnan, Georgia, we'll be back after these messages.
He only has 3 rings.
Hockey season, and that means new merch over at ourdragonsmerch.com. Get the latest designs and some of our fun new souvenirs ahead of what's sure to be a great hockey season. Celebrate another season of River Dragons hockey by getting a new look to wear on game days, or surprise the big-time sports fan in your life with a new keepsake that will make them a River Dragons fan for life. Order online right now at ourdragonsmerch.com. That's the letter R, dragonsmerch.com. We'll see you at the rink.
Hey, sports fans, it's Rod Peterson here, host of The Rod Peterson Show, inviting you to join us daily for 2 hours of Atlanta's funnest sports talk right here on WQEE. I say fun because it is. You've never heard a show like it because we make the listeners a part of the show every day between noon and 2 p.m. Eastern. You'll hear plenty of the best sports talk, including the latest on the Falcons, the Braves, and more. And who knows, you might even hear you. That's the Rod Peterson Show, daily at noon, right here on WQEE 99.1 FM.
Le'Veon Bell, he put out a single for people to listen to on Twitter of a rap album that he's really proud of. He asked for people to critique it. Keenan Allen, the receiver of the Chargers, came back with the trash emoji.
Appreciate your honesty.
And what's even better, I can't do it justice because we're on radio. You've got to see the video. The video that he put up. Oh my God. It's like the most funny and exciting thing I have ever seen because it's like really bad late 80s, early 90s rap video. But anyways, the video is the best part of the whole thing. He's got a hoodie on. It's staged almost like black and white. He's like under a bridge somewhere where there's like a bonfire going.
Hard times.
So like, yeah.
Hard times.
You know, hard times for a guy making millions.
He can relate.
But the funniest part is when he's got the hoodie on, he's doing poses and stuff like that and kind of jiving around. And then this is the funniest part. Out of nowhere, sorry, I can't get it out. He comes up from under the screen. So in other words, like
from the Muppets or something?
Almost like the Muppets.
When you see just the figure just come straight up.
Yes, the gig comes straight up while he's also in the background.
Uh-huh.
It's like the worst thing put together ever. I don't know how to edit a video. We could do better than this. I'm telling you.
Who's the director, Pouncy?
Armchair.
Welcome back to Braves Country. Mac McGinn, the Armchair Quarterbacks. Weekdays, 3 to 5 p.m., drive time on WQEE.
It's not whether you win or lose. It's like the team that wins is the one that has the most fun. You know, that crap like that. You know, all this stuff that's contaminated America where they give every kid a trophy and they don't keep score in Little League anymore.
Try to move on and a tragic day in American sports, American history. Well, I think a lot of people always going to remember where they were if you were watching this game, or maybe where you were when you heard about it and flipped over to see. You know, whenever these tragedies happen, whether they're sports tragedies or I think of all the tragedies that you deal with throughout your life, and especially today with all the media that shows it, I think it leaves an imprint on people as far as where you were. Things like, you know, this obviously is a different scale, but I think it's just as impactful on your memory. Things of like 9/11. Obviously, if you were alive back then, the JFK assassination. I'm obviously I don't know if that's obvious, but I'm much too young to remember that. But that still resonates with my mom. She still talks about it from time to time. And it's one of those things that I don't think you're going to forget. Like I mentioned the Chucky Mullins thing. I still remember where I was watching that game. And I don't even know why I was watching Ole Miss and Vanderbilt. Not a big fan of either one. And this is right before I moved to Nashville for the stint that I lived in Nashville, Tennessee. So I wasn't watching because of that. But Ole Miss and Vanderbilt, it was the SEC game of the week that week on either Raycom or Jefferson Pilot or whatnot. And I remember seeing, there's other injuries that are not nowhere near this serious, but they came to mind to me last night. Remember the Napoleon Kaufman injury on Monday Night Football in the early 90s with the Raiders? Obviously, if you were alive, you remember the Joe Theismann. I think that one skyrockets to the top of the board. Tim Crumry with the Bengals in 89. There's a lot of injuries that happen in sports that you're just shocked when you see it, and they're not even life-threatening. And this one's life-threatening. We do not know what this is going to mean for Hamlin and his family long term. We just hope he's okay and sort the rest out. I do think it's incredible that his toy drive that he was trying to raise, I think it was $2,500. It's up well over 4 million. People keep updating me on the Facebook page, and it's kind of funny. A couple people, it's almost like they were correcting. I was like, well, of course it's going to climb, you knuckleheads. When I first mentioned it, it had only been a couple hours. It had gone from his goal of 2,500 to 500,000, and then it just climbed overnight. So, but when you think about major injuries, unfortunately, football is the one that you normally think of. Now, I'm not old enough to remember it, but I do know a lot of baseball fans that talk to me about, older baseball fans that talk to me about when Pete Rose put the dirty hit on Ray Fosse at home plate in the Major League Baseball All-Star game that essentially ended his career. That's why a lot of people still do not, people that lived that era, there are a lot of people who still do not have a favorable mention of Pete Rose, and it's not because of his gambling. It's because of that dirty hit that he put on in an All-Star game. There's so many injuries. I think of the Gordon Hayward when he first joined the Celtics. I believe it was his first game. If it wasn't, it was the very first week or so, and it was a nationally televised game. And I was having dinner with a buddy of mine who's a Celtic fan, and it happened, and we both went, "What in the world?" Like you just couldn't fathom. Unfortunately, we've gotten so used in football to injuries, and we've gotten so used to guys laying on the field motionless, and then they eventually come to. But this was a different scene. This was a guy that had to have CPR administered to him on the field, and it was before they could even relay the message. I knew that game was not going to be played, and the main reason was if you saw Joe Burrow and Josh Allen standing side by side, and the look on their faces, particularly Josh Allen's face, where he was just glazed over, you knew there was no way that you could go back out there unless they got word immediately that he's fine, responsive, et cetera, et cetera. That was the only way they're going to be able to go back out there, because you're talking about playing a very, very physical, fast-paced game at a high level. And if you're not mentally into it, you're going to have even more injuries out there. And so it was just it's a devastating last almost 24 hours in sports. I'm going to try to talk some other sports, but I know we're going to continue to come back to this. I did want to talk a little Rose Bowl. Had all this stuff jotted down before the injury. that game was a bit of a disappointment, and it came down to, if you watch the game, Cam Rising and Utah were very competitive, and I think they would have had a puncher's chance of actually winning that game. I felt like they actually looked like the better team because they had the better quarterback, and he went down with that injury, and you could tell instantly that team is not the same without Cam Rising. Now, I'm not saying that he's going to be something special in the National Football League, but as a college quarterback, he's very impressive. And the play calling was really questionable coming out of that, as soon as Rising left the game, they were trying to take deep shots down the field with this backup quarterback who obviously was not ready, and he was turning the ball over left and right. And at that point, I was like, I turned the game off when it was 28-14. Penn State had the ball. I was like, it's over. This guy is not going to go down and score 2 touchdowns. The Tulane game, if you watch the end of that, I mean, that was a very impressive game. And that's what's so sad about the Hamlin injury, is that you almost feel guilty. I feel guilty being someone who is going to react to anything that happened yesterday that wasn't Hamlin related. But I do feel like that for everyone to sit in the dumps the entire day, that's really not what this world is about. That's not what life is about. And the things that I've read about, I was not very familiar with Damar Hamlin, but really impressed with him. And I think he would want us to move on. Obviously, we're not going to totally move on, but to be able to, because at this point we're in a waiting. We're all just kind of staring. I don't know about y'all, but all day long I've been staring at the bottom line, waiting for breaking news, and it had nothing to do if there was going to be a week 18. It was, how is Hamlin? How is Hamlin? How is his family? Remarkable that his family, I don't know how many members, but they did say members of his family was at the game. So can you imagine if he went to school in Pittsburgh. He's from New Jersey is what I read. So you can imagine if you're in New Jersey and this happens and you're hundreds of miles away. It's very fortunate that he had some family there, even if it was just 1 or 2 members. They didn't get specific, obviously, but even if it was 1 or 2 members, to relay messages back to his immediate family to say, hey, this is what's going on. Oh, and there's always that one guy. There's always that one guy, isn't there? So Hamlin's, he's some kind of a marketing director for Hamlin, and he's also a longtime friend. He updated people on Twitter of his health, and there were instantly these bozos. I mean, these freaking bozos that come out of the woodworks and say, what's your source? And I love the way he put it. He said, my source is me. I'm a longtime friend. I'm also his, I can't remember how he put it, but marketing director, marketing manager, something like that. I've had friends that have done that where they say, I'll shoot them a text about something's going on. Go, who's your source? I go, me. I'm my source because I found the information. What do you mean? Who's my source? Who are you? These people that come at you with who's your source? Like, you have to explain to them that you may know something they don't know. And a lot of times you're passing it along because, when it comes to friendships and whatnot, you're just wanting to pass along information because they're a fan of a certain sport or a certain team. And I've got one friend in particular in mind. I'm not going to share who it is, but he does that quite a bit. When I saw those tweets, he's the first one that came to my mind. I was like, oh my God, get over yourself. who's your source. I don't think a random guy would be out there putting out the information that he put out because he was too detailed about it, right? But anyways, there are some other sports news. If you missed it, Arkansas has hired away Marcus Woodson, the defensive back coach from Florida State. And after doing some digging, so first I thought to myself, well, why is he leaving Florida State to go to Arkansas? At best, that's a lateral move, if not a downward move, considering where the trajectory of both programs are at this point. And not that Arkansas is not doing a good job. I think that they're on the right track by far. But after doing some digging and whatnot in the Florida State circles, evidently they believe that as opposed to announcing he was fired and then he has to go find a job, they let him know that he needs to go find a job and then he leaves. And there have been some coaches with some class that have done that in the past in all sports. I've always respected those coaches because it sounds like that they were wanting to upgrade, because it wasn't just the fact that Woodson's ability to coach, but he wasn't very good at recruiting. And that does come into play when you start talking about college football. So they will be on the lookout for the next defensive back coach. I kind of think that they're going to promote within and then bring someone else in from the outside. But you never know, because guys like head coaches, especially in college, but also in the NFL, that are very successful, they usually have already a game plan in place. If I lose this guy, I'm going to go after that guy. And so we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. That's not like the biggest news in sports, but I did find it interesting yesterday. Other things going on in the world of sports is, that I got to circle back to that USC Tulane game. First of all, it's pretty humorous that the Tulane fan, the girl, I don't know if she's a student at Tulane, but she was definitely a Tulane fan. She's gone viral, much like some of the other college fans over the years, the Jen Sturgers and whatnot, because the cameras caught her and she had an endearing look and she's very photogenic. We'll just put it that way. And now it's gone viral. And either last night or this morning, open up TikTok. That was one of the first videos I saw, was her on the screen, and she's duetting the video, reacting, basically saying that's me. So I don't, they always say that everyone gets their 15 seconds of fame. I don't know if she'll parlay that into anything, but it definitely caught everyone's attention. But outside of that game was insane. I mean, they're down. We're reacting to it live because it was on while we were on the air, and they were down 15 with about 5 minutes left. And I'd even said that I thought the game was over, because at the time USC had the ball, they were on the Tulane side of the 50. They were up by 12, and Tulane had not stopped Southern Cal at all in that game. And somehow they forced a field goal to make it from a 12 to a 15-point lead. And you go, well, and I wasn't going to react to it quite yet because I didn't want to jinx it. But Tulane gets the ball back, and immediately they have a long run that sets them up for the touchdown. And next thing you know, they're down 8, and there's 4. It was right below 4.5 minutes left. You're like, okay, now there's a chance. And then that incredibly awkward, and all I could call it is moronic play calling. After the ball was kicked off, if you missed it, Southern Cal's return man inexplicably tries to return a ball that was in the corner of the 1 yard line, of his 1 yard line, misplays the ball and it bounces out of bounds. So Southern Cal has the ball in their own 1. They're up by 8. There's about 4 minutes left. Tulane has 1 or 2 timeouts left. I can't remember how many it was, but they still had a chance. And they were inside the 1, and the first play they ran was out of the pistol, and the guy barely got back to the line. Then the second play they ran, essentially the same play out of the pistol, which if you're not familiar with what that is, he's in the shotgun. He turns on, try to hand it off. And you give their defensive line a chance to penetrate through, and that is exactly what happened. And he drops them for a safety. And the look on all the Southern Cal fans were like, are you kidding me with this? I mean, common sense tells you in that situation to make them earn every single point, the first play should have been a quarterback sneak. Push it up 1, 2, maybe even 3 yards sometimes. Or at least a direct handoff under center. So they get the safety. Now they're down by 2. They get 2 with the safety. Now they're down by 6, and they're getting the ball back, and there's plenty of time left. And they march down the field, score a touchdown with seconds remaining. That's one of the best bowl games of the entire season. And there's been a lot of great bowl games. I talked about it yesterday towards the end of the show. I mean, I've been very impressed by the bowl games this year compared to what it's been in previous years. And to answer your question, Michael, I see you're asking about how this is going to, how the what I think is going to be the cancellation eventually. It'll take a couple of days. Cancellation of Cincy Buffalo. And I know you're talking about being in a fantasy league, and we all know that takes a back stage to what's really important. But to answer your question, I honestly think the game just gets canceled and the points are what they are at wherever you were at. And the same thing for all the sports books. So when it's all said and done, it's really not that important. But I do get the fan side of it where you're wanting to know. And in fact, a second ago, I went on to the couple of the fantasy sites. And for instance, for Yahoo, what it says is Yahoo is awaiting the NFL's decision on the resolution of the Bills-Bengals game, which was suspended. We'll make a determination on how to proceed with Week 17 scoring. While we understand the game's impacts of the fantasy league at this time, we ask for your patience to wait updates and our thoughts and prayers are with Damar. And of course, that's what's more important is Damar and his family. And just like the seeding doesn't matter, the fantasy football, I mean, you're just going to have to understand, look, it's gambling. And you gambled, and it is what it is. But anyways, I think at this point, they'll cancel the game, and then Week 17 will have finished at Week 17. So it'll be interesting in some formats, because if you had a quarterback or you had a receiver that you needed a big score from, it would be affected. But there are some formats where the scoring for your defense would be affected because of how many points they give up. And obviously both defenses did not give up a lot of points. I don't think a lot of people would have started Buffalo or Cincinnati's defense considering who they were playing, but you never know. And of course, DFS and all the millions of dollars it's played with that every single day. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little more football and what now for Week 18 as we try to unpack the decision of the NFL. We'll be back in a flash here on Braves Country HD.
Let's go out there. Let's cut the regular season back to 10 games, and you can have some well-placed off weeks. You can have an NIT in between to fill in the blanks, and let's have a 64-team playoff. The champion will play 16 games. And see this guy. I'm not off the mark here. You're off the mark. Everybody else does it this way.
Braves Country on YouTube Live, covering the AFC South and NFC South along with the rest of the NFL. Subscribe and like us today. Your first choice for sports talk, Braves Country on WQEE and YouTube.com/@Braves Country.
I hear these fools on TV talking about defund the police and things like that. We need police reform and prison reform and things like that. Because you know who ain't going to defund the cops? Rich neighborhoods. So that notion they keep saying that, I'm like, wait a minute, we just going to leave, who are people supposed to call? Ghostbusters when we have crime in our neighborhoods?
ACC football covered like no other here on the Armchair Quarterback.
Reggie Gillespie dives into the end zone. The winning points for North Carolina State. And the teams come together in the end zone, pushing, shoving between the back and the heels as Gillespie has scored the winning points, his 5th rushing TD. But these teams need to be separated. The emotion boils over on the last play of the game as Gillespie goes to the end zone. And it's a sea of Carolina blue and State red.
And Carruthers gets into it, and they've doused him, and now we've got a big brawl out of the field. Marring would have been the 200th victory for Bobby Bowden. Look at this. That's an ugly mess down there. This is ugly. Starting to get it cleared up down there, although there's still some bodies flying around.
ACC football, backyard brawls all year long.
Hey folks, this is Mark White with The Mark White Show, and you can tune into The Mark White Show every Saturday from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. right here on Rock 99 WQEE The Key, the home of Southern sports and talk.
Welcome back to Braves Country. Mac McGee and the Armchair Quarterbacks, weekdays 3 to 5 p.m. Drive time on WQEE. Welcome back. I do think that there's something that should be addressed. Skip Bayless, if you missed it, had a very, very insensitive tweet that a lot of people are reacting to. And here's the tweet word for word. Happened during the delay. So they hadn't postponed the game yet. It was during the delay. And Skip Bayless, if you're not familiar with who he is, then I don't know what to tell you. He's been doing sports talk on FS1, before that ESPN, for 20 years now, easily. There's always been people that have pointed out that he's a little kind of an underhanded character, but we'll set that aside. And it says, the tweet says, word for word, no doubt the NFL is considering postponing the rest of this game, but how? This late in the season, a game of this magnitude is crucial to the regular season outcome. And then he added at the end of it, which suddenly seems so relevant, that right after that, he posted about an hour later, nothing is more important than the young man's health. That was the point of my last tweet. I'm sorry if that was misunderstood, but his health is all that matters. Again, everything is irrelevant. I prayed for him and will continue to. Okay. So he cleaned that up. But if you don't realize what he's doing, it's what he's always done. He goes out and he puts something like this out where you're going to react to negatively to, because he, like a lot of people, believe that there is no bad press. Meaning, if you're in the conversation and you look at how many people viewed it, the first tweet, 139 million. If you view how many people viewed his apology, 19 million. If you look at how many people viewed the next tweet he put up, which basically said, please join me on my show, 6 million. And though that's a lot for any of us, no one pays attention to what I got to say for, 6 million people. you see the game that he's playing. He's always done it. And I have never been a fan of the way he does sports talk journalism. I think he's a gotcha guy. But at the same token, I do think a lot of people dragged him across Twitter and other forms of social media that they almost sit there waiting for someone to make a mistake and then they go after him. So I don't agree with that either, but I believe the whole thing, it's a game. It's a yo-yo to him. He puts out something bad, then he pulls it back and says, I'm sorry. And he'll do it again. He'll continue to do it again and again and again. And you just have to realize who he is. And of course, everybody is hoping he gets fired for it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's not going to happen, because the bottom line with FS1 is they're going to look at, man, 19 million people saw your tweet. X amount of those people are going to come in and watch your show tomorrow morning. And that's the name of his game and the name of a lot of people's game. But I did think that needed to be addressed, because there are people that have been going crackers about this. If you want to talk real football, if you want to get into actual football talk, what's going on in the world of sports, it looks like, according to the Philadelphia head coach, the Jalen Hurts will be ready to play. Now, this is a quote from him in the press conference yesterday.
Sounds like he's doing a lot better. And he really, by the end of last week, Andrew, was doing better and better. Was out of practice Thursday, out of practice Friday. Looked good, was functional, threw well, didn't seem to be in a lot of pain. The reason he was held out of this week's game really wasn't because he couldn't play the quarterback position with his sprained SC joint. It was really just, what if somebody landed on him? What if he re-aggravated that shoulder? Wasn't quite there, but was really close. Jalen Hurts is expected to go in Week 18, just like he would have been able to go if it was, let's say, a playoff game this past weekend. Things are pointing in the right direction for the Philadelphia Eagles in a game that they got to have to get the number one seed.
Okay, so I misspoke, by the way. I thought I had the clip of the head coach of the Eagles. That was actually Rappaport from the NFL reacting to what the Eagles coach had said. And it's what we had read about and seen, but it's the first time that I had heard yesterday that if that was a game they had to have, Hurts could have definitely played. They were erring on the side of caution. They were hoping they could beat the Saints. They should have been able to beat the Saints at home. For whatever reason, their offense did not click like it did against the Cowboys the week before. And now they are in a must-win situation. If we can try to put our focus back on to what happens on the field during this difficult time to be a football fan. The game Sunday, Eagles-Giants, is a big game, and then again, it's not. The Eagles need to win the game to be able to have home field advantage throughout the playoffs. And that game, I believe, let me double check that time on there. Eagles-Giants it is a late game. It's 4:25 kickoff, along with Cowboys-Commanders. Now, if the Cowboys lose, the Eagles don't need to win that game to win the division, but they would lose home field advantage to the Niners. So if the Giants were to pull off the upset and beat the Eagles, and the Cowboys beat Washington, and San Francisco wins, in that scenario, the 49ers become the number one seed. Now, if the Cardinals were beat the Niners and the same thing played out, the Cowboys are the number one seed. And then the Eagles would be the number one seed. All they have to do is win. So that's why you've got all the games playing at the same time, because you don't want one side to have the upper hand on the other. So those are your 425 games. It's a pretty good slate at 425. The early games, kind of a dull slate. But you got Cowboys, Commanders, you got Rams, Seahawks, which is very important for the NFC wild card, because if Seattle wins, the Lions cannot make the playoffs. If Seattle loses, the Packers are still in a win and in Sunday night versus the Lions. But if the Seahawks lose to the Rams, which I think there's a better chance of that happening than what people are giving the Rams chance of doing. Rams are going to pull out all the stops to try to keep their division rival out of the playoffs. This offense has looked a little better with Cam Akers in the backfield, with the Seattle Seahawks at home. They definitely have the big advantage there. With Cam Akers in the backfield and Baker Mayfield under center, this offense has looked better than it did, we'll say 3-4 weeks ago. So they've got a chance. And the thing that the Rams can do and have done that the Seahawks have struggled against, and I do not know why the Jets did not focus on this more. The Seahawks give up a lot of yards on the ground. So you've got that going on. At the same time, the Niners are playing the Cardinals. They need to win that game to keep the pressure on everyone else. Giants and Eagles at 425, they need to win. Chargers, Broncos is irrelevant. The Chargers do need to win to secure the 5 seed, but they've already made the playoffs. The main reason why it's on the late slate is because it's out in Denver, and they don't want a 11 a.m. kickoff out in Denver. The early games, Browns-Steelers is important. Panthers-Saints, no longer realistically important. Bears-Vikings, not really that important. Bills-Patriots become important to the Bills only if Kansas City loses, because I do believe that they're just going to cancel the Week 17 game against Cincinnati. If Kansas City loses, they would get an opportunity to beat them out by a half game with a win versus the Patriots. If Kansas City wins, then Buffalo's probably resting players. And then let's say that is what they decide to go with. At that point, Ravens-Bengals is no longer a big game because the Bengals would have clinched the North by a half game. They're 11-4. Ravens are 10-6. If they only play that one game left, the best the Ravens can do is be 11-6 and the Bengals 11-5. And obviously the Bengals would have it on the tiebreaker, or excuse me, by a half game. Jets-Dolphins, which is also at 1:00. That is a big game because if the Dolphins win and the Patriots lose, the Dolphins are the wild card. But if the Dolphins lose and the Patriots lose, then all of a sudden the door opens up for the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are at home against the Browns in a very winnable matchup. But I think it's going to be a hard game itself. Pittsburgh's a 3-point favorite. I think that sounds about right. Pittsburgh doesn't put up a ton of points. They also don't give up a ton of points. I think you're going to get a game that's going to be very, very competitive. And all three of those games, I think the Jets are going to give it their all against the Dolphins. And there's guys, even though the Jets are out of the playoff picture, there are guys on that roster that know they are playing for a roster spot somewhere. Even if it is not in New York next year, the Jets players are playing for a roster spot somewhere. So the Jets are going to make, and what will be interesting, they still haven't announced it officially yet, is whether or not Mike White, who definitely looked injured, is he going to be the quarterback, or are they going to roll Zach Wilson out there? Or do they have another game plan involved? You haven't seen Flacco in months. Would they roll him out there? So that's got a lot to do with what's going on in the AFC wildcard. Of course, before all of that happens on Saturday, and now that the NFL has announced that they will go on with Week 18 as planned, Chiefs-Raiders, 4:30, essentially looks like it's going to be for the AFC number 1 seed. But I like the Raiders' chance to win that game. They always play the Chiefs well. Stidham looked very good against San Francisco. And the Raiders are at home. And if the Chiefs' season can be ruined by the Raiders, that's a playoff victory in itself for Raider Nation. And then Saturday night, you got the Jaguars and the Titans, and they are going head-to-head in Jacksonville, Florida. A win, and you're in. You lose, you're done. Jacksonville has an outside chance. If Jacksonville were to lose, they would be scoreboard watching Sunday, but they would need losses by Pittsburgh, Miami, and New England. Any other scenario, they do not get in. So essentially, you have to look at it as winning you're in. Because the chances of all three of those teams losing, I can see two of them losing, but I don't think all three of them are going to lose. So Jacksonville needs the win. They're playing much better football than Tennessee. The line right now is 6.5. But if that thing creeps up 7.5, closer to 8 come kickoff, because they have announced that, well, obviously Tannehill's on the IR, and they've announced that it'll be Josh Dobbs back under center. If it gets 7.5, 8, I'm telling you right now, I'm leaning Titans. That's not enough points. It really isn't. It's not enough points. I'm sorry. I said that's too many points. Excuse me. Jacksonville is going to score on Tennessee. And I do believe Dobbs and mainly Derrick Henry are going to score on the Jags. And the biggest thing that I see in that number that I like the most, and it'll definitely be one of my locks this week, the over-under that game is only 40. And two defenses that have gotten gashed. 40 is a low number. And it's going to be decent weather. There might be some rain, but 64 degrees. It shouldn't be anything terrible. That's going to be a big, big game in Jacksonville. And I think rightfully so. So some people scoffed at it, but I think that's where you got to put Titans Jags. It's not a big market, and they don't have the legions of fans that Green Bay does. So that's why the Packers end up on Sunday night. But it's an important game, and it's a big enough game where people who like the NFL, even if you're not Titans fans, even if you're not Jaguar fans, you're going to watch because it's NFL. It's for a playoff. It's essentially a playoff game. The playoffs start this week for Tennessee and Jacksonville. We got to take a quick break. When we come back, Joey joins us, and we're going to get his take on the world of sports and everything that's going on. We'll be back in a flash here on Braves Country HD, wherever you stream in Braves Country on 99.1 FM WQEE The Key in Noonan, Georgia. You're listening to WQEE 99.1 FM The Key in Noonan, Georgia.
Armchair. You're listening to the Armchair Quarterback Sports Radio, #1 sports station.
Good afternoon, and this is your Armchair Quarterbacks Sports Flash. Pretty light slate in the NBA tonight. The Boston Celtics are at the Oklahoma City Thunder. Celtics 26-11 on the season. Thunder 15-21. Tips at 8 o'clock Eastern. Boston's a 9-point favorite over under 234. On NBA TV, Wizard and Bucks. Milwaukee, 8-point favorites, 229.5 is the over. And the Kings and Jazz, 9 o'clock Eastern. Utah, 3.5-point favorite at home, over under 242.5. Men's college basketball tonight. The number 8 Tennessee Volunteers are at home against Mississippi State. The Vols, 9.5-point favorite, over under 122.5. Number 3 Kansas is on the road at Texas Tech. Rock Chalk Jayhawk, a 1-point favorite, over under 140.5. Longhorns at home against K-State. Texas, 8.5-point favorite, over under 135. Bama hosts Ole Miss on SEC Network, 9 o'clock Eastern. Bama an 11-point favorite, while number 11 Virginia is at Pittsburgh. Cavaliers, 6-point favorite, over under 127. And also in the SEC, South Carolina's at Vandy at 7 o'clock on SEC Network. And LSU, 8 o'clock Eastern on ESPN, They're 12-1 on the year and travel to the 9-4 Kentucky Wildcats. While in the ACC, Notre Dame's at Boston College at 7 o'clock on ACC Network. And Syracuse is at 2-12 Louisville. The Cardinals are a 9-point dog at home. 137.5 is the over. And that's your Armchair Quarterback Sports Flash. Stay tuned for Braves Country right here on WQEE 99.1 FM, The Key in Noonan, Georgia, simulcasting on youtube.com at Braves Country.
It's the best in sports and entertainment, and get locked in and locked down with Rhino Radio Penitentiary, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. with your host, me, Ryan O'Neal, each and every morning, right here with the best in sports and entertainment, all the way from professional sports to college sports to River Dragons hockey and everything in between, including some of the very best local and national guests. It's the Rhino Radio Penitentiary, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. Monday through Friday, right here on 99.1 FM WQEE.
Hockey season, and that means new merch over at ourdragonsmerch.com. Get the latest designs and some of our fun new souvenirs ahead of what's sure to be a great hockey season. Celebrate another season of River Dragons hockey by getting a new look to wear on game days, or surprise the big-time sports fan in your life with a new keepsake that will make them a River Dragons fan for life. Order online right now at ourdragonsmerch.com. That's the letter R, dragonsmerch.com. We'll see you at the rink.
Shenyang, a performance that truly matters to every one of us, is coming to the Columbus River Center for the Performing Arts, January 17th, one night only. Shenyang brings 5,000 years of civilization live on stage through choreographed dance, music combining Western and Chinese instruments in an animated backdrop. Come and see it at least once in your lifetime. Tickets at shenyang.com/GA.
Welcome back. Here on 99.1 FM and Braves Country HD, wherever you stream. Joining us is Mr. Joey. Joey, how are you today, sir?
Oh, doing as good as you can for the first Tuesday after the holiday. I know everyone's getting back in motion, but just a somber day overall. I know many of outlets, including right here on WQE, have mentioned plenty of times about Damar Hamlin. Just, something we never seen before. And I've heard some great stories today about how good this 24-year-old, kid / young adult is. He had to grow up at a very young age. He was a father figure to his younger brother, who was much younger. When he went to Pittsburgh, he commuted from home every day instead of staying on campus just because he needed to help his mom out while his father was actually in prison for a few years when he was in high school and college. So a lot of good stories I've heard today, and it's just a shame we have to be where we are because it came off a great sports weekend for this not to put a sad moment and just a moment where we're all thinking about him and his family. That's all we could do.
Yeah, played for the Pittsburgh Panthers and only been in the league a couple years. I do remember him in college. Now, I haven't followed his NFL career that much. He's a good player, but second team All ACC in 2020, and then he's been with the Bills after being drafted in 2021. And though you got to figure it's going to be tough for him to resume his football career, we just hope that he's okay, and maybe there's a larger purpose for him to meet, to mean for people in this world. And we still await, but I kind of suspect that we're not going to know anything as far as his health for a while. These are very, very tough situations, and it's not something that gets fixed quickly. It's not something that the doctors, nor should they, rush to get him back to a place where we feel a little more safe in his outcome, right? Like it's just, you can't imagine a 24-year-old for that to have, for cardiac arrest to happen. And I think that's what really catches us the most by surprise. I think when it first happened, we were all concerned that it was, a neck injury. And then you knew instantly it was something different than that, just by everyone's reaction on the field.
Yeah, it really puts life into perspective because, as you said, a 24-year-old who's in the prime shape of their life, a great athlete playing the hardest sport in America in my eyes. And he, for the cardiac arrest to happen in such a split second of time where this has to I'm not a doctor, but after hearing a lot of things that could be going on, for the little chance of this happening to such a good, not only well-rounded person, but in great shape, a great athlete, just hard to imagine. I mean, the guy, he played at Pittsburgh, like you said, now on to here. It's just something that you don't expect, and you reevaluate a little bit of your own life when this happens, because I start to think, man, if this can happen to an athlete, I can't imagine anybody else. So it really puts a lot of things to me in perspective.
I think Ryan Clark said it best last night. He said at 24 years old, I didn't know I could die. Right.
Yeah.
And it kind of hits the nail on the head, because when you're that young, you do think you're invincible at that age. Like at that age, you think, well, I'm invincible now. I won't be invincible when I get older. But life is so fragile, you just never know. We lose people all the time that I believe we lose way too early. Best example of that, Mike Leach was only 61 years old. And as far as I know, he wasn't doing anything strenuous when he had the heart attack, right? And this is just another reminder of just how fragile life is. And we just hope for the best for him. But you got to, what we do here is we try to pick up the pieces, and we try to, bring you a little levity to your life, and talk a little sports. The Rose Bowl, I'm assuming you watched quite a bit of that.
Oh yeah, I went to the parents' house, and my brother and pops are all over it. So I was tuned in.
So it was an exciting game, and then Cam Rising got hurt, and then it just became very disappointing. Because the moment Cam Rising got hurt, it was very evident his backup is not on his level, and that game was done. It was absolutely, and I was a little surprised that he was leaving the game. I thought he was just going to go get, basically put some tussin on it and get back in there. And he starts leaving towards the locker room. And at that point you're like, okay, this game, your first reaction is, well, let's see how the backup quarterback does. Then he throws that pick. And then the next time they get the ball, he just looks absolutely lost. And I was immediately like, well, this is not the matchup we signed up for. I'm out of here.
Yeah, doesn't he seem like he's just the heart and soul of that team too? It felt like just the wind was just knocked right out of them offensively.
Yeah, it was done. And I said it earlier on the show. I don't even know how good of a professional quarterback he'll be. He may be terrible on the next level, but he's a very exciting college football quarterback.
Yep.
And I hate the fact that that the Rose Bowl has to end again for him in a bad way, when he was excited to play in it after losing last year.
And that's the most, that the Rose Bowl within itself, outside of all of the playoff games, I most look forward to the Rose Bowl because, the tradition, it's you have only a couple of bowl games left here, and the matchup is usually pretty solid. So a game that we really look forward to. It's a shame that we had to lose, the quarterback of Utah, Cameron Rising, because it would have been a closer game. I don't know who would have won, but it would have been closer.
I definitely think it ends up. It probably comes down to the last possession. If he plays the full game, because they were driving down by 7 when he got hurt. And anyways, you move on. congratulations to Penn State, but it's got to feel a little empty to Penn State because they know that they beat Utah without their this is literally the equivalent to me of you say, hey, we beat the Lakers tonight, but LeBron James was off, right? You're like, okay, well, what can you do?
Good win, I guess.
Right. I can't name 3 Lakers without LeBron James' name in there, right?
You get a gold star.
Right. Some guys are starting to opt out in college football. I don't think any of them really surprised us, but I will continue to share the names up there on the screen. Looking at what we're most likely going to get here in Week 18, I believe that they're not going to play the Buffalo-Cincinnati game at all. It's just, where are you going to squeeze it into? Unless you're going to play tomorrow night, you just literally can't squeeze it in. You could, in theory, play tomorrow night and have those two teams play their games maybe on Monday, right? And you probably and just so that you don't have look, when it all comes down to it, follow the money, right? ESPN's got a contract to carry the college football national championship game, not Monday Night Football on Monday, right? So if they were to do that, let's say if they say, hey, we're going to play the game tomorrow, and then the Bills and the Bengals are going to play their games on Monday, it would have to be early to late afternoon kickoff. And I don't really see what you gain out of that. I think you're better off just throw it in the trash heap, say the game is what it is. It didn't get finished. I guess in theory you could say Buffalo could forfeit it, but I think you just leave it alone and just you're gonna seed teams off of uneven records.
Yeah, and I totally agree on that point. I think you go no contest, and just pretend like the game never happened. And if it comes down to it, with the records being messed up, you could just probably do win percentage, or maybe it works out fine without even having to do so. But I think a no contest for that game, and let's move on to Week 18, as we're backed up against it with the schedule and the Super Bowl being in February. So not a lot of options here.
No, and when you look at the big picture, the seeding it's just not worth it. It's
minute.
It's not worth going through all this. It just is what it is, and you just realize, well, it's an odd thing that happened, but we're the Players Association basically just have to step up and say, hey, someone is going to deem that decision unfair, but there's no real way to get to, this isn't baseball or basketball or hockey where you can just play in a couple of days.
The only little break they have is the bye week they get to the Super Bowl, and I don't think you can obviously mess with that.
No, but Boomer and Gio were talking about that this morning, and it's not logical.
Right? It's too much.
Yeah, because, okay, so what are you going to do, not play any games this weekend, and then you're going to have Buffalo, Cincinnati? They were talking about playing on Monday night, but you don't play it on Monday night. You need to play it on Sunday because of the conflict with the national title game.
I guess the only thing is if you played week 18, and then if Cincinnati and Buffalo's record came down to it, then you could have it the week later, and you just push everything back a week. And I just think that just
that's the Super Bowl. You would have to just eliminate the bye week in between.
Correct. That's what I'm saying. Eliminate the bye week.
You can't do it to the Super Bowl because there's too many things that have been. There's too many things that are built around that Super Bowl weekend. That I mean, for months and months and months, not just hotel reservations and whatnot, but everything that goes in to planning a spectacular event like the Super Bowl. You can't just easily, we'll just play it next week.
No, I'm with you.
This isn't a pickup football game in our backyard.
Wouldn't that be nice?
And so then, the answer wouldn't be to play the game. I just thought that and they were spitballing it, and I get that, but I just thought that was kind of a goofy. That was one of those comments that I thought to myself, you're not really thinking what you're saying at this point, right? It's easier, it's smarter, it's better to just eliminate the one game than to push back 15 games.
I'm with you.
So or 16 technically. So
too many logistics, too much money, too much everything.
But when you look at the games that are going to go down, let's go ahead and jump into the Saturday, and then we'll do Sunday. But Saturday, Chiefs Raiders now becomes, assuming that game never gets played, the Bengals game, the Bengals Bills game never gets played. Chiefs Raiders, that becomes 4 home field advantage throughout the playoffs. Because if the Chiefs finish at 14-3, the best that the Bills could finish is 13-3. And Cincinnati would have no shot. Cincinnati's only chance to do it would be to beat Buffalo and then Kansas City lose, and then they would get the tiebreakers. And so that's done. So Kansas City at that point, if they win Saturday against the Raiders, and I do not think that's a gimme. It's in Las Vegas. Stidham looked good. The team looked revived.
Chiefs have looked like on a bumpy road lately too.
And there's going to be some extra oomph in all the players in the Raiders locker room to feel like that they're playing for Buffalo, right?
Absolutely.
So I don't think it's a given that Kansas City wins the game. And if Kansas City loses the game, then it really opens up the door wide open on Sunday. Because if Kansas City wins the game and Buffalo has nothing to play for, the Patriots will probably walk to a victory. But if it happens the other way, then Buffalo's playing with heavy hearts. They're playing for a big prize. And New England's trying to get in to the playoffs themselves. And if we're assuming that Jacksonville beats Tennessee Saturday night, we'll get into that one second. If Jacksonville beats Tennessee Saturday night, then the New England has to win, or there's no way for them to get into the playoffs.
Yeah, they put a lot of importance on this Saturday compared to last year. I remember there were a couple of games, but not the impact as so this year. So, the Chiefs, they've been a little bit lackluster lately against a couple of underwhelming opponents, Houston, and then obviously last week, they didn't look so good against Denver. Going into Las Vegas, where Stidham looked pretty good, they're going to be playing tougher, as you said, with high motivation. And then we got the elimination game you're about to get into in the AFC South. So a really good Saturday matchups.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I really think that they've got to, the NFL is going to have to, in the next 24 hours or so, make a decision if that game's ever going to get played. Because it really ties into a lot of things at the end of the day. So if it's not going to get played, then guess what? The Bengals have won the North. Because the worst the Bengals could finish is 11-5, and the best the Ravens could finish is 11-6. The only other way you could do it is you could just forfeit. The Bills just forfeit the game, but I think that's kind of a.
I'm with you.
Dirty. It feels dirty to make them forfeit. I think it's better just say the game got canceled.
And honestly, at this point, and I'm not saying my opinion on it, but there was a lot of negative reaction to kind of how they went about handling it. I think the NFL is going to do the best job they can now of making sure they do the right things. I'm not saying what happened yesterday. There was a lot of talk about the 5-minute comment that Joe Buck made in the warm-ups and all that stuff. I don't, it's a new situation. It's the first time it's ever happened. I'm not going to fully, go at like some people are blaming the NFL, but the NFL now, in my opinion, needs to make a really good job of carrying out this process the best way possible and really telling the fans, hey, it is about the players. It's not just about making games happen.
What are you saying? The fans are going cocoa bananas about what?
Well, yesterday when, there was a moment in time when the game was stopped for the injury. And then they said, Joe Buck said, everyone, and not paraphrasing, I am, of course, 5 minutes, their players are going to have to warm up and then we're going to try to get this thing going. The two head coaches then met at that point and said, look, we can't keep this going. So a lot of people are wondering, why is the NFL trying to pause this game, then play it again? We should have called it quits from the get-go. It's a new situation. It's the first time it's ever happened.
I mean, that's literally what it comes down to, because everybody's got their gotcha moment and they want to gotcha. You said something, you thought something wrong. No, it's just whatever, man.
It's the first time it's ever happened, literally ever.
I don't even think that's worth even thinking about, much less talking about, because fans are just idiots. When it's all said and done, they say things and do things that, especially in today's world, this only happens because of social media. They all want to gotcha. You said something wrong, you thought something wrong. Gotcha. And it's really more indicative of who they are as people than what they didn't know if they were going to get an alert from the medical staff at the hospital, say, hey, he's fine, he's responsive, he's going to be okay. And then they probably would have went back out there and played. Right.
I'm fully agreeing with you. It's just some crap fans.
What a maroon. We'll be back in the flash when we come back. We'll talk some more Week 18 and maybe talk a little NBA. Man, Klay Thompson had a big night last night at the expense of Atlanta. We'll be back in a flash.
I might audible. If I audible, I'll use Omaha! Red Polly! Blue poncho! Do it! Rambo! Give me Kershaw here, Kershaw!
You're listening to the Armchair Quarterbacks.
Japan! Richmond, New York! Richmond, Florida! Sally, Buffalo! Jet, hey, Short Ox! Luda Raiders! Omaha! Come out!
Beware, my friend, and let me warn you. They're thinking of taking a bums to California. Let's keep the Dodgers in Brooklyn. Our house is not a home without some love. Don't let them leave our premises. LA will be their nemesis, but Brooklyn fits the Dodgers like a glove.
Visit Shane Company for meaningful holiday gifts. Our in-house design team creates unique styles of fine jewelry in every price range. Exquisite symbols crafted with superior standards and made to last a lifetime. We have a variety of diamond infinity designs to symbolize your everlasting love. We're also known for our natural and vibrant rubies, which represent enduring passion. Or select a stylish necklace with the stone in her favorite color or her birthstone, so you'll always be close to her heart. Our jewelry consultants in the store and online will help you find something beautiful to put under the tree. Your gift will be a symbol of your love that will be treasured forever. Now you have a friend in the jewelry business. Shane Company and Shaneco.com.
Hey folks, this is Mark White with The Mark White Show, and you can tune into The Mark White Show every Saturday from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. right here on Rock 99 WQEE The Key, the home of Southern sports and talk.
You're listening to WQEE 99.1 FM, The Key in Noonan, Georgia, home of Braves Country with Mac McGee and the Armchair Quarterbacks, weekdays, 3 p.m. Eastern to 5 p.m. Eastern, right here on The Key and YouTube.com at Braves Country.
I, one of Barney's best friends. Promise never to interfere with his personal life again. Unless it's an issue of health, national security, or he's about to get up on a fatty.
I'm
Armchair.
Community Access Channel.
He's the armchair quarterback. He's full of beer and he's full of snacks.
Welcome back. See the news? Dominic Smith signed a 1-year deal, $2 million with incentives, or $4 million with the Nationals. Man, it hasn't been that long ago that they thought he was going to be a cornerstone of the franchise. I remember they were excited when they heard that there was going to be a designated hitter rule in the National League, because they thought that Dom Smith was going to be the guy. Do you remember that?
A little bit. I'm trying to think back more on it now as you talk about it.
Well, anyways, he was he was a power hitter, left-handed power hitter, but primarily could play first base. They tried to put him in the outfield, but it was just a disaster. And the thought process was, if you could have him at DH and you have Alonso at first base, you'd have a heck of a 1-2 combo. And then somewhere in the process of the designated hitter rule coming into play, he just fell off and forgot how to hit the baseball.
Yeah, clearly, because last year he only hit 194 and only drove in 17 runs. He didn't get a lot of at-bats, I know, but still.
Now, at one point, they thought that he was going to be a real power hitter for the Mets, and now he's signing a 1-year. We'd all like to have that money, but it's a small deal in the grand scheme of things. 1 year, $2 million with the Nationals. So see if we can turn it around. He's got to be what mid to late 20s by now.
27 years old.
Yeah, that's what I figured. And, they say 27 is the age where you're the best, where you become the best hitter. They say between 27 and 29 is your prime as a hitter in baseball.
This will be his year to make it, prove it deal, that's for sure, and try to get a contract.
And I mean, he's a guy that if he can get his swing back, man, a left-handed power hitter in today's age of the designated hitter rule, I'm not going to say he can name his price, but he can get a pretty healthy contract this time next year. Real quick, do want to touch on the fact, look, I know they're having a terrible season. They're 9th in the Eastern Conference. Atlanta fell to 17-20. They lose in double overtime to Golden State. But Klay Thompson going off for 54 points. Unbelievable.
Yeah, and, that was rough for Atlanta to endure. As a Bulls fan, Donovan Mitchell put up 71 last night, so people must have just been going off of the rails in the NBA yesterday.
Yeah, I obviously didn't watch the game. I was so wrapped up in the drama that was Monday Night Football, but evidently I missed a heck of a basketball game, because 143-141 in overtime. And this doesn't shock you. A few years ago, Klay Thompson going off and hitting buckets from all over the place, right? But since he came back from his second and third injuries, he has just been a shell of his former self.
And it's a shame, too, by looking at, the highlights in the box score. Atlanta had a huge third quarter to try to, get back in this game, and it unfortunately led to little in the end. A good road showing. It's never easy to go on the road. Golden State has been playing a little bit better lately. They're actually 17-2 at home. But overall, if they come up short again, and that's been the story of this Atlanta Hawks season, they just can't get over the hump. I don't know if they were climaxed already in the past couple of years, but it sure seems like they're not fully getting it together.
21 of 39 shooting, 10 from 21 from 3. Now, he did take him till double overtime to get it. So, and I get it's 10 minutes longer than normal. So it's basically an extra quarter of basketball, but still impressive.
Maybe
there's been so many rumors about Trae Young wanting out. If this is their ceiling, they really ought to think about trading him and rebuilding.
That's part of my thinking as well.
And I know that's hard to swallow if you're a Hawks fan, because you're looking at a guy who is just an offensive juggernaut. He's only 24. Are you ready to give up on him this quickly? But at the same token, if you can't, it's they're a couple of years removed since they had the 21 that they had such the good good year. They went up against the Knicks.
They lost in 5. I remember. I think it was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Yep.
So 21. Right.
Yep. You're correct.
I thought that meant that the Hawks were on their way back up, and last year they were a disappointment. This year they're definitely disappointing.
You just got to wonder too. They signed DeJounte Murray, trying to get, another big name in there, and it's there's a lot of question marks to why it's not working out fully, but it clearly hasn't, as they're under 500, looking up at a lot of teams in the East.
Yeah, and the thing about Trae Young, though, that I'll say this, and he has not publicly said it. It's just been rumored and that there's rumblings that he wants out. But if you really wanted out, why did you agree to a contract that's not going to expire until 2027?
Yeah, what changed his mind so quickly here? I mean,
because it got hard? I mean, well, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Boo-hoo.
You're going to average well over $40 million a year if you count this year and the next, 4 years after that. Toughen up, Buttercup. Get out there and play. Try to attract someone that wants to come play with you. I'm so sick of this new NBA where everybody wants to give up and go, it's hard. I can't win by myself. Go put me on a team that has 3 stars.
It's kind of ruining the NBA when you get out, how they just create things now. Try to win it on where you went to, where you got drafted. To me, that's the cooler thing to do anyways. It's a lot of pride built in that where you got drafted.
Yeah, absolutely. 37 this year, 40, 43, 45, and almost 49 in 2027. What is so difficult?
That paycheck that goes in the account every week.
When a guy has 3 ACL injuries, how about you don't get outscored by 24 that night? How about that?
You like that?
Good Lord.
That's such a tough spot too at his age, because obviously he's such a good player, but the fan base, regardless of what they get in return, they're going to be scratching their heads if you trade Trae Young. I mean, if you get the mothership, it will look nice, but it's going to be a lot of debate.
Yeah, I just don't really want to spend a lot of time on the NBA because we don't talk a lot of NBA, and the reason why is because nobody really cares about the NBA. But even with that being said, I just, when it comes to Trae Young, I saw that rumor that came out. It was about a week or so ago, and I just could not believe what I was saying. I was like, "What? This guy just. I mean, my word. I really think they're only a player or two away from competing big time."
Oh, I totally agree. They're closer to being better than a lot of these teams under 500.
If he did go somewhere, Atlanta's not going to trade him to the East. They're going to trade him out West. So I think he wants to go to like New York or something. There's no way you trade Trae Young in your conference if you're the Hawks.
You can't be haunted by that many games a year. Just can't.
Gotta watch this guy beat me or go for 65, 6 times a year. By the way, if Red Sox fans missed it, Rafael Devers has agreed to a 1-year, $17 million arbitration deal. I'm actually surprised his arbitration deal wasn't more than that. But they'll obviously continue to try to work out a deal, a long-term deal. I don't think they're going to sign him. And we're going to have there's going to be some fun times this summer. Our old friend Teamus Wooten is going to join us starting Monday afternoons, 3 to 4. Big baseball fan, Red Sox, Braves. And he is out of his tree right now. I talked to him. It must have been, I think it was the night of the Florida State Oklahoma Bowl game. And it was right after that. And he was out of his tree about how the Red Sox have fallen. I still can't understand it. The Red Sox used to be like the Yankees, where you knew they would spend money in the offseason. And now, like, what do we have, Joey? We've got a team that you looked at their payroll and didn't look at their uniform. You would honestly be saying that this team is probably, they're not quite the Miami Marlins, but they're maybe the Arizona Diamondbacks.
And man, in my lifetime when I grew up in the heart of these, I remember the Roger Clemens, the Yankees, Red Sox, all those rivalries, Pedro Martinez. They had the big names on each side of the map. Now you look at their depth chart and their starting rotation. I mean, just right off the bat, you look at it. If Chris Sale isn't healthy, which he hasn't been at all over the past couple of years, that rotation, they picked up Kluber, but you're on a lot of what ifs there. Their lineup, outside of a few names, I mean, my gosh, the only big money move they did was Trevor Story, and how worth it that will be to be determined.
They were outbid for a guy that I view as their guy because he has that bulldog mentality, and he was very good for them in the postseason a couple of years back. Nathan Eovaldi signed a 2-year, 34, so 17 a year with Texas. That's not a high price to pay for Nathan Eovaldi. Now, maybe they viewed him as being a little too old. He's 32. And maybe he gave them the hometown discount because he's from Houston, right? But Nathan Eovaldi has been, since he came from the Rays, he's kind of been the heart and soul, the bulldog of that entire pitching rotation. And now they don't bring him back. You look at the Red Sox rotation, which we'll get more into that next week.
Oh,
my word.
It's like a flea market over here.
You can't look at that team right now and say, other than the fact they're going to be in the cellar of the AL East, I wouldn't put them above the Baltimore Orioles this year.
That's just sad. And I'm sure your buddy's going to, I remember him a couple times cross-talking with him from blast from the past. He's going to be all over it.
Yeah, just in Toronto, New York, there's no way that Tampa, there's no way Boston competes. Not at where they're at right now. I know a couple of years ago they came out of nowhere and competed. That was great, but man, it's hard to find lightning in a bottle when really all you got is fireflies.
The flashlight seems golf.
Yeah. You need to change out the C batteries there, buddy, because I agree that Xander Bogaerts was overpaid, but they could have gotten Xander Bogaerts for cheaper if they would have locked him up earlier. It's going to be the same thing with Devers. We got to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll go ahead and wrap this show up, talk a little more football, maybe get into some baseball talk. We'll be back in a flash here on Braves Country HD, wherever you stream, in Braves Country on 99.1 FM.
I got back to the hotel at 7:30 this morning, and I went up to the desk to leave a wake-up call for 7 o'clock. The lady goes, "It's past 7. No, the next one. You got another one coming around, don't you? Why don't you just put me on that one?"
Tom has been a teacher for over 40 years. One day, I think one of the students had asked the question and he didn't remember the answer. And I also noticed that he was letting his class out earlier than they were supposed to let out. I was really starting to worry.
Levi and I talked about how it would change our lives, but he was there beside me.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. Visit alz.org/ourstories to learn more. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
It's the best in sports and entertainment, and get locked in and locked down with Rhino Radio Penitentiary, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. with your host, me, Ryan O'Neill, each and every morning, right here with the best in sports and entertainment, all the way from professional sports to college sports to River Dragons hockey and everything in between, including some of the very best local and national guests. It's the Rhino Radio Penitentiary, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. Monday through Friday, right here on 99.1 FM WQEE.
Winter is the perfect time to start planning for your healthy, pest-free spring lawn with True Green, America's #1 lawn care company. True Green's science-based approach and local expertise will help give your lawn the year-round care it needs to be thick and weed-free. Go to truegreen.com/radio to save 50% on your first service. Just call 866-946-5956 or go to truegreen.com today and get a lawn to be proud of.
Hey folks, this is Mark White with The Mark White Show, and you can tune into The Mark White Show every Saturday from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. right here on Rock 99 WQEE The Key, the home of Southern sports and talk.
You're listening to WQEE 99.1 FM, The Key in Noonan, Georgia, home of Braves country with Mac McGee and the Armchair Quarterbacks, weekdays, 3 p.m. Eastern to 5 p.m. Eastern, right here on The Key and YouTube.com at Braves Country. Welcome back. Heading towards week 18 of the NFL season. And some big matchups on Sunday. Look at the Sunday slate, Joey. The Jets Dolphins is a pick 'em right now. Believe that?
What?
Yeah. Jets Dolphins is a pick 'em. Because the Dolphins are down to the third string quarterback. They've already said Tua is not going to play. I don't know who the Jets are going to go with. It sounds like they're going to try to run Mike White back out there, but man, he did not look healthy against Seattle.
I like Dolphins coach trying to McDaniel saying maybe Bridgewater will play. It's like that would be a tough one. I don't know if that's going to happen. It's going to be the third string guy, right?
It's not. Yeah, dislocated finger for a quarterback with his throwing hand.
It's not going to work.
No. There's no way the swelling goes down in time. And then you've got to work on some kind of a game plan. Yep. And Bridgewater is not Aaron Rodgers, so you're not just going to go out there just because he can get out of bed. So I think old Teddy Two Gloves is going to be sitting this one out. That kid cannot stay healthy, man. It is just unbelievable how every little nick and bruise finds him.
Even as a backup.
Yeah.
Oh, get your chance? Nope, see ya.
Giants-Eagles is now a 2-touchdown game, and they do say that Hurts is going to play.
I wonder if Giants will not play anybody because aren't they pretty locked into their position?
Yeah, they are. So in the NFC, the only two teams that are locked into position are the Bucs at the 4 and the Giants at the 6. Everything else is up for grabs.
Wow, that's wild.
So they're not going to play. They've already said that Daniel Jones isn't going to play. And I don't believe you'll see Saquon Barkley.
The Colts defense gave them enough good statistics to last for a couple weeks off anyway.
But I'd still be really nervous giving up 14. Because this isn't going to be like a Purdue bowl game where like nobody plays. You only have a handful of guys on your practice squad that you can elevate. You can't just go to a complete second and third string out there. That's not how the NFL works.
No, and in the National Football League, the backups are usually a little bit more sustainable. They're playing for their next job.
Tyrod Taylor.
Yep. So I mean, he's playing for his life too, right there.
So, as long as someone doesn't jab him in the ribs with a
oh, I forgot about that. Jeez,
that pretty much ended his chance at being a starting quarterback. I'm surprised. I'm surprised that he didn't get a big settlement out of that.
Maybe it was on the side.
If you look at the late slate, there's some really interesting games because you've got Rams and Seahawks, and the Seahawks are at home. Rams getting 6.5. I think the Rams can pull it off, man. The Seahawks cannot stop the run, and Cam Akers all of a sudden is back to being Cam Akers.
And, I agree with you. I think the Rams can make some noise. I have a little bone to pick here, right, though, if you don't mind, with Mr. Ron Rivera, because it makes no sense to me. First off, after calling out Carson Wentz at the beginning of the year, he starts him. And then he has the worst quarterback rating, Carson Wentz, worse than the Jaguars-Colts game last year in Week 18. That's how bad it was on Sunday. And then after the game, he didn't even know if Green Bay won, they were eliminated. I think he's on the outside looking in.
They've got to fire him. I'm sorry, but he's done it in my book.
They have to.
Now, the problem is he coaches for the Commanders, and nobody knows who even is going to own that team a week from now. But my word, you've got to get rid of him.
What a colossal mess that was.
The entire Carson Wentz experience is a mess. What was it that they gave up to the Colts in the draft?
So we got we got 2 third-round picks in back-to-back drafts for him, and they paid for his money.
You would give third-round pick for that garbage. And I think that's why he thinks he has to start him. And I tweeted this out over the weekend, but if I had to hear one more NFL expert tell us that Carson Wentz's ceiling gives them a better chance to win than Taylor Heineke. Taylor Heineke is a grinder. He gives you a better chance of winning. I don't think Taylor Heineke loses against the Browns last Sunday. And I think they're still in the conversation.
I agree, and I actually copy and pasted your tweet to a buddy because he told me his exact words early in the week. Carson Wentz's ceiling is massive, even though his floor is low. It's just a bunch of malarkey when you're saying that. Tyler Heineke had this team on a trajectory. Okay, yeah, was he perfect? No. But he managed the game well, and he grinded every single start he had and ended up doing pretty well.
That's the equivalent of saying that I could be a supermodel if I just got into shape. Yeah, but it's not going to happen. I'm not going to put that cheeseburger down, my guy. You know what I mean?
Oh, I'm speechless.
Yeah.
Give me that value meal.
Yeah. You'd be really smart if you quit killing your brain cells, huh?
A great Sean Salisbury quote. He says, "If my aunt had balls, she'd be my uncle." What if? What if? What if?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know where they get it from. Because he had that one good year back in 2017. Then when he was hurt, what was it, week 11? And that is the last time Carson Wentz has been what I would consider an elite quarterback. When he came off the injury, he was okay for about 6 games, and then he fell off. And then ever since then, they realized, oh, my word, what have we done? If Carson Wentz was that good, Jalen Hurts wouldn't be an Eagle.
If Carson Wentz was that good, he'd still be an Indianapolis Colt.
Right, but they never would have let him leave Philly.
You're right. Yeah, you're right.
He never would have left the Colts.
Correct.
He wouldn't be looking for a job next Tuesday when the Commanders ask him to clean out his locker.
The XFL is starting soon.
XFL. He's going to the USFL. He can't make an XFL roster. He's an absolute just show of what. I don't get it. I see these guys are supposed to be smart. They're supposed to know football, and they will tell you over and over again, "Oh, but man, his ceiling's really high." I saw it 2 or 3 days before the game on Sunday. I can't think of the guy's name, but he's pretty well respected in the football world, and he said the same exact thing. Oh, but his ceiling
makes me sick.
I'm like, what are you on, horse? Are you riding the white horse? Whose ceiling? The only ceiling that Carson Wentz has is the ceiling that he looks up at after he's getting sacked. I mean, it is really unbelievable.
I just had to get off my chest. I'm glad we agree on that one.
It is unbelievable that Yeah, there's no way that Wentz or Rivera can keep their job. You can't go into 2023 week 1 with Carson Wentz as your starting quarterback in Washington. It's just like if you're the Jets, you can't go into 2023 as Zach Wilson as your starting quarterback. The fan base doesn't want to look at it again. The fan base does not want to sit there and go through another offseason of hearing how you're building around Carson Wentz or Zach Wilson, Matt Ryan for that matter. Who else is washed up?
Andy Dalton on the Saints.
How is that? Taysom Hill should be starting. And I know the offense looks like it's from the 1920s when he's behind center, but he should still be starting because Andy Dalton is an absolute joke.
And did Winston commit a crime or something? Because he at least is younger.
I don't know why Jameis Winston isn't starting.
There's something there. I mean, what's going on?
Now, granted, I'm a little biased because I'm a Jameis Winston fan, but still, Jameis Winston at least gives you an opportunity to score over 30 points. Now, he might also throw a pick six, yes. Right? But I'm okay with that because he'll throw a pick six, but he'll also throw 3 or 4 touchdowns. And if you play fantasy football, you're like, let's go. I drafted him in so many best ball leagues as my second or third quarterback, and then he didn't get an opportunity whatsoever. And I cannot figure because Andy Dalton is not lighting the world on fire. I think a really scary offense would be give me Jameis Winston behind center and I run Taysom Hill in and out during the third and fourth and shorts, right?
It's the perfect recipe. You got the big arm.
You deal with that all week? Oh, can you imagine the headaches? No, let's put Andy Dalton back there, statue.
2 yards and a cloud of dust or a sack.
I mean, he plays like he just saw Medusa's frozen in time. Just like, ugh. Once again, if Andy Dalton was very good and still had it, Joe Burrow wouldn't be in Cincinnati. And these same clowns that will defend Carson Wentz, Andy Dalton, will sit there and try and tell you Dak Prescott isn't an elite quarterback. But all these other guys' ceilings are. Get out of here.
That quarterback situation this year will never make sense to me because they weren't like they have a lot of talent on that team, but it makes no sense.
Meanwhile, back at the ranch, how in the world is Brock Purdy, Jimmy G? I mean, the only guy that I think could get anything out of a Carson Wentz would be Shanahan, but I think Shanahan's got too much sense to ever sign Carson Wentz.
Yeah, he's juggling 3 quarterbacks next year. Well, Garoppolo will probably be gone, but with Trey Lance coming back, he's got a lot of things to juggle around next season.
Is Carson Wentz even on an NFL roster as a starting quarterback next year? Because I don't think he is.
It would have to be for very cheap. And I also want to almost agree with you because he's going to be somewhat of a distraction. I'm not saying he's a bad person, but I just think as him as the backup, there's always a little distraction there.
If he gets signed by anyone, it has to be assumed that you are the backup now. So in other words, the Falcons can't sign him, right? He's got to be the number 2 quarterback behind, we'll
Patrick
say
Mahomes,
Buffalo, right?
Yeah, sure.
So you're like, Josh Allen's a starter. Shut up! Don't even bring this up. But yeah, like that's all I've got left when it comes to, and you're not gonna believe this. I'm watching a show coming out of New York the other day, and one of their guys, and I know it's because he's a Falcon homer, right? He's a big Falcons fan,
right?
But he is trying to tell people that the best fit for the New York Giants next year or the Jets is Matt Ryan.
What?
He's like 60. Can we give Matt Ryan a break?
Please, from a Colts fan, that guy, not only does he he sacks himself, he can't throw the ball 40 yards downfield.
I don't even want to trash Matt Ryan in general out of his career. He had a good career.
Absolutely.
But it's over. And if he signs with someone He has to be a backup. The problem is he was at an elite level. He can't be a backup. He needs to step away from the game.
People need to start learning from the Colts' mistakes of trying this older QB thing and just realize you got to get the young, mobile guy in the draft.
Yeah, it really does dumbfound me how these supposed NFL experts all over television will sit there and try to convince you that Carson Wentz or Matt Ryan, or we still don't know what we have from Zach Wilson. Really? We don't know what we have from Zach Wilson? I think we got a guy who's too short to see over the offensive line that's more worried about picking up MILFs than picking up first downs.
Amen. I like that one.
More power to you, but that doesn't mean I want you my quarterback.
We're not paying you millions for that.
Wilson needs a change of a venue. He needs to go sit behind someone for at least a year where it's known that you're not the starter, my man. You're coming here to sit. Because you do see flashes, you see the arm strength, et cetera, but he's not there. He's just not there.
I can't believe, speaking of quarterbacks real quick, I know we're getting out of here. What do you think about Dobbs starting again for Tennessee?
I think Dobbs gives us a much better chance than Malik Willis, but I do think Tennessee will put some packages in with Willis that is a straight, you can call it a wildcat, whatever you want. Right. He's a quarterback, but he doesn't have much of a passing game at this point in his career. That's a lot to deal with. And I feel like if they can and I would do it early and often, have Willis in there on short yardage where you got to go and actually use the guy on RPO and go, hey, on this play, you're going to bootleg. On this play, you're going to keep it. If you got to keep up with him and Henry, you got a problem, my friend. What is your walk-off?
Oh, yeah, real quick. Hopefully by the time, you're on tomorrow with the boys, we get better news on Damar Hamlin. That's going to be the subject of my thought process. Keep continuing for better, posts from his family, whoever we can get information from, hoping for Damar and his family the best. Let's keep getting towards positivity on that note.
Absolutely. I'll just echo that. Prayers for Damar Hamlin and his family. And hopefully we get some good news about him. And, tough scene. Tomorrow we will be back 3 to 5. Keep it locked in here on 99.1 FM for First Name Sports on Sports Map Radio. Tomorrow, Ryan O Radio, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. We got a jam. We'll see you mañana.
Goodbye, sweetheart. Well, it's time to go. We're back tomorrow with another show. Well, unless we're fired, we'll talk to you then. Goodbye, sweetheart. Goodbye. Goodbye.
Guys and gals, it's time to go. We'll see you on the next show.
Same bat time, same bat channel.
Thanks for listening to Braves Country with Mac McGee and the Armchair Quarterbacks on 99.1 FM WQEE, The Key in Noonan, Georgia, and simulcasting on youtube.com/@Braves Country. Braves Country comes your way weekdays, 3 p.m. Eastern to 5 p.m. Eastern. Please follow, like, and subscribe today. Armchair Quarterback Radio, your first choice for Southern sports.
Something of the 5th of September. Something of the 5th of September. She said a lot that I can't remember. Something of the 5th. Can I get another cigarette, please? Can I get another cigarette, please? Yeah, I know I live to regret it. Just give me another cigarette, please.
You're listening to WQEE 99.1 FM, The Key in Noonan, Georgia.
Are you looking for a reliable dental practice that not only cares about your teeth, but is friendly to work with? How about one that offers great deals and new patient promotions? Well, your search is over. Most Valuable Smiles in downtown Eatonton, Georgia is committed to giving you the biggest and brightest smile. Right now, get a $99 new patient special, including x-rays and exam. Maybe you're looking for veneers. Most Valuable Smiles Veneer Special includes 1 free veneer with every 5 purchased. Or get that bright white smile you've always wanted by taking advantage of an exclusive $100 off Zoom whitening treatment when you book today. And don't forget that 2022 is almost over. That means most insurance policies will reset by the new year, and to avoid losing that extra money, you need to use it or lose it. Book an appointment today with Most Valuable Smiles in downtown Eatonton to lock in these exclusive deals. Call 706-623-0318 or visit mostvaluablesmiles.com.
Hey, sports fans, the Key has a brand new show. Braves Country is coming your way weekdays 3 p.m. Eastern to 5 p.m. Eastern. Drive Time on WQEE. Braves Country is a Southern sports talk show with Mac McGee and the Armchair Quarterbacks. We'll be talking the Atlanta Braves and Major League Baseball, along with everything important to sports fans in Braves Country. The SEC, ACC, Big Ten, and the National Football League, and the Big